There is a small book in a drawer in your house that decides which borders will open for you. It isn't valuable. It isn't sharp. A stranger in a uniform 6,000 miles away, who has never met you, who owes you nothing, will look at it and let you walk into his country. That is an extraordinary thing to ask of a piece of paper. And for almost all of human history, it didn't work. You crossed a border, and your safety was whatever the local lord decided that morning. There's a claim you'll find all over the internet that the man who fixed this was Genghis Khan. That claim is wrong. But it's wrong in a way that's far more interesting than if it were right. He was born to a minor clan on the steppe, in a culture with no cities, no writing system, and no bureaucracy. His father was poisoned. His family was abandoned to starve through a winter. As a young man, he was captured and kept in a wooden collar. By the time he died in 1227, he ruled from the Pacific coast to the Caspian Sea, the largest contiguous land empire that has ever existed, and he built most of it after the age of 40. The conquests are the famous part. Cities that resisted were made examples of in ways that emptied whole regions and are still argued about 8 centuries later. But conquest is the easy half. Plenty of men have won battles. Almost none have solved the problem that comes next, because the moment you rule 5,000 miles of ground, you have a question no army can answer. How does anything you decide reach the far edge of it? And how does anyone out there know your word is real? The travel document was not new. The oldest written reference historians usually point to is over 2,000 years older. A Persian king handing a traveler letters, instructing his provincial governors to let the man pass. Han Dynasty China issued permits for movement through its territory. Every organized state that had ever had roads and borders had invented some version of the idea. So no, he didn't invent it. But every one of those documents shared the same limit, and it's a fatal one. They worked inside one state. Your Persian letter was worth exactly as much as Persian power reached, and not 1 mile further. Cross out of it, and you were holding a piece of leather with writing on it. The problem was never the document. The problem was that the world had no single authority wide enough to make one mean something across a continent. And then, briefly, it had one. The Mongols issued an object called a pisa. It was a tablet, small enough to hang around the neck. Gold, silver, bronze, or wood, depending on how much authority you'd been given. And it carried, in effect, a warning rather than a request. This traveler moves under the Khan's protection. Obstruct him and answer for it. Here is what that bought the bearer. Not just permission to travel, the right to be supplied. Fresh horses at the relay stations, food, shelter. The men at those stations had no discretion in the matter. The tablet outranked them, and it worked from Korea to the edge of Hungary. One object, honored across the width of Asia, by officials who had never heard of the man carrying it and had no way to verify anything he said. That is genuinely new, not the document. The reach of it. For the first time, a traveler's safety didn't depend on the goodwill of whoever he met. It depended on a system, and the system was bigger than any local man's opinion. We know it worked because of a teenager from Venice. He was a foreigner. Wrong religion, wrong language, wrong side of the world, no standing whatsoever. He traveled thousands of miles through Mongol territory and came home to write about being issued a golden tablet by the Khan's court. Think about how strange that is. A young man from a city on the other side of the earth, moving safely through a region he had no connection to, protected by a piece of metal. He wasn't unique. For roughly a century, the roads across Asia were safer than they had been before, or would be again for a very long time. Historians call that stretch the Pax Mongolica. Merchants used it. Missionaries used it. Ambassadors used it. Paper moved west. Gunpowder moved west. Chinese medicine moved west. Not because anyone planned a cultural exchange, because for the first time, a person could carry a document that a stranger would honor. So did Genghis Khan invent the passport? No, and it's worth being precise about how firmly no. The paisa didn't survive into European law. There's no line you can draw from that tablet to the document in your drawer. When medieval European kings issued letters of safe conduct, they weren't copying the Mongols. The object you own today was standardized at a conference in Paris in 1920, after a war had made borders matter in a way they never had before. And it looks the way it looks because a committee of diplomats agreed on a size, 8 centuries and no inheritance. The chain doesn't exist, but the problem does. And what the Mongols proved, at a scale nobody had managed before and nobody would manage again for centuries, was that the problem is solvable, that a document can be made to carry a state's authority into places the state doesn't govern, that a stranger's word can be underwritten by something bigger than the stranger. That is the whole idea your passport runs on. It isn't a Mongol invention. It's a Mongol proof. He is remembered for what he destroyed, and there was a great deal of it. But the thing that outlasted him wasn't a border or a bloodline. It was a demonstration that the world could be crossed by someone carrying nothing but a token and a promise. That's what empires leave, not what they meant to.